Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into Jordan Peterson.
Oh, yeah.
We've got some selections from his book,
Okay.
12 Rules for Life.
Uh-huh.
And you guys have sent in some of your own
Right.
reflections and thoughts and stories. So let's jump into it.
It's really interesting that you've got those personal stories in there too,
Yeah.
because I think that's going to give us a really fascinating landscape to sort of explore Peterson's ideas in.
Totally. So this book, 12 Rules for Life, it's not your typical self-help book.
No.
He really goes deep. I mean, he's pulling from psychology and philosophy, and he's
Uh-huh.
even talking about ancient myths.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's creating this bridge between
It is.
like old world wisdom and then applying it to
Yeah.
modern life.
That's a great way to put it. I mean, a lot of these ideas actually stem from his other book, Maps of Meaning. And in that book, he's exploring how we as humans deal with the unknown, how we
Right.
find order in chaos. And so 12 Rules is almost like a practical guide to those ideas.
Gotcha. So kind of putting those more complex ideas
Yeah,
into a more accessible format.
exactly. Making it a little bit easier to grasp and to
Yeah.
actually implement in your life.
Okay, cool. So let's start off with the concept of rules in general.
Okay.
Peterson has kind of a playful take on the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
He's talking about
Right.
how we as humans have this push and pull relationship with rules.
Yeah.
Like we want the structure,
Right.
but we also rebel against being boxed in.
That's like the fundamental human paradox,
That's-
isn't it? We crave
that's-
freedom, but we also desperately need that security. I think Peterson himself
Yeah.
embodies this paradox in a lot of ways. He actually refers to himself as a
yeah.
gentleman cowboy.
A gentleman cowboy. That is so Peterson, though. Like, he is this intellectual giant,
Yes.
but then he's also so approachable and down to earth.
Totally.
Like, I feel like you could have a beer with him and just debate the meaning of life.
Exactly. He's the kind of guy you could just sit down and have a beer with and like have
Yeah.
this awesome intellectual sparring match.
Totally. Okay, so one of the things I found super thought-provoking in the book
Yeah.
was when he was talking about the connection between lobsters and humans,
Right.
specifically with social hierarchy.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, who knew we could learn so much about ourselves
Play-Doh.
from these crustaceans?
It's wild, isn't it? Like, you don't think about
Yeah.
lobsters having all these life lessons for us. But basically, Peterson, he was observing lobsters, and he was struck by how their dominance hierarchies influence their serotonin levels. And serotonin, of course, plays a huge role in mood and behavior.
Yeah.
And he argues that humans have a similar biological link between social status and this brain chemical.
So you're saying that, like, where we fall in the pecking order, whether we're sort of winning or losing,
Yeah.
can actually impact our brain chemistry and therefore, like, our well-being.
Exactly. So those higher ups in the hierarchy often have higher serotonin,
Okay.
which leads to more confidence, less stress, and, even better physical health.
Interesting.
Where
So
it's
it's not
been
just a
found out.
mental game.
No, it can actually impact
Gotcha.
your physical health. Lower serotonin is linked to anxiety and depression and even a bunch of physical problems.
That's a really powerful takeaway for anyone listening. Like, you really have to
Yeah,
pay attention to your social dynamics and how they're
absolutely.
impacting you on, like, a biological level.
Yeah, and this is where Price's law comes in. It's this mathematical principle that Peterson uses, and he's basically showing that a very small number of people end up with like a huge proportion of
Right.
the resources or the influence. Like,
Yeah.
think about wealth distribution or even the size of cities
Wow.
or even like how often certain words are used.
Interesting.
It's everywhere. This pattern pops up everywhere.
So it's not just about the lobsters then. It's like a
It's
bigger
principle.
principle at play
Yeah.
that suggests that these hierarchies are not just social constructs,
Yeah.
but they're rooted in.
They have roots in biology and even in math.
That's wild.
It is.
But does that mean we're all stuck
Oh,
in this
what-
predetermined
Not necessarily.
game?
No. Peterson's point is that once we understand these biological factors,
Oh.
we can make changes. We don't have to feel trapped.
Gotcha.
We can actually use this knowledge to become more conscious of our
Right.
posture
Mhm.
or even our sleep habits.
Okay.
And even just think about how our social interactions might be influencing our internal dominance counter.
That's actually really empowering.
It is.
Like, we have the power
yeah.
to kind of shift things.
Exactly.
He also talks about, not comparing ourselves to others,
Oh, yeah.
but comparing ourselves to who we were yesterday. Especially in today's world, it's so easy to fall into that comparison trap and end up feeling less than.
Yeah. It's all about quieting that inner critic,
Right.
that voice that's constantly comparing us to everyone else and making us feel not good enough. So by focusing on our own progress, we're actually shifting from a more negative competitive mindset to a more constructive and manageable path to improvement.
I love that. And he has this other idea that I find so interesting.
Okay.
Where he says, when you're facing negativity,
Yeah.
ask yourself, what would an idiot do?
Oh, yeah.
Now, I know that sounds kind of harsh. He's not calling anyone an idiot.
No.
But he's using that
It's like a tool.
as a tool
Yeah.
to shake up our thinking.
It's brilliant
Yeah.
because by asking that question, you're actually challenging those automatic negative thoughts. You're challenging your own assumptions that can actually sabotage you. And you might even come up with a more creative solution.
Than you would have otherwise.
Totally. And he also has this interesting take on resentment.
Oh, yeah.
He says it's not just this bad feeling to suppress. It can actually be a guide.
Oh, interesting.
And he's saying it's either signaling our own immaturity, where we need to take some responsibility,
Gotcha.
or it's actually signaling a genuine instance of tyranny that we need to address.
So it's like a feedback mechanism.
Yeah.
It's telling us either, hey, grow up and own your part in this, or stand up and fight back against injustice.
I love that. And it ties into another point he makes, which is set your own house in order first before you try to change the world.
Such a powerful
It is, especially for younger generations.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about ignoring problems in the world, but it's recognizing that change starts with ourselves.
Right. It starts with you.
Yeah. And by building our own character
and owning our own lives, we actually become more capable of making a positive impact on the world around us.
It's like you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
You have to fill your own cup with strength and wisdom first, and then you can actually contribute to something bigger than yourself.
Exactly. And I know Peterson gets some flack for not being like a happiness guru.
Right.
He actually critiques the idea that happiness should be our ultimate pursuit.
Yeah.
And he's drawing on history's dark chapters and thinkers.
Right.
Like Solzhenitsyn to support his view.
Yeah. He's basically saying that happiness shouldn't be the main thing that we're chasing.
Yeah.
He proposes meaning as a much more profound and lasting aim.
Gotcha.
He acknowledges that suffering is like an inherent part of life, and that meaning is found in confronting and overcoming challenges, not simply seeking pleasure.
I see. And so his message is particularly relevant, I think, for like a generation that's often shielded from hardship.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of instilling this sense of empowerment.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we are capable of navigating the complexities of life.
Yeah.
We're not just entitled to be happy all the time.
Exactly.
So he uses these powerful metaphors of chaos and order.
Right.
Chaos represents, the unknown, the unpredictable. It's full of danger, but also creativity.
Yeah.
And then order is more about structure and predictability and safety.
Yeah. And he makes these ideas
It's a habit.
come to life with all these amazing examples from stories and myths.
Yeah.
Like think about the Shire versus the Dragon's Lair, or Pinocchio's journey into the deep ocean, or Adam and Eve being expelled from Eden. Like he's giving us these really relatable ways to connect to these very abstract ideas.
So it's almost like when everything is going smoothly, that's order.
Right.
But then when your plans fall apart and you're thrown into the unknown,
That's chaos.
That's chaos intruding.
Exactly.
And then the key is to sort of navigate between those two poles.
Yeah, finding that balance between stability and growth.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the story of Adam and Eve.
Okay.
Peterson sees this deeper psychological meaning behind becoming self-aware and understanding good and evil.
Yeah.
And he links it to the evolution of the human brain and all the challenges that came with it.
He's basically saying that self-consciousness, while amazing, is kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It allows us to create and to think deeply,
Right.
but it also burdens us with the awareness of our mortality, our flaws, and our capacity for both good and evil.
And he even reframes the idea of original sin, not in a religious dogma kind of way, but as this realistic acknowledgement of humanity's capacity for both good and evil.
Yeah.
So it's a more nuanced understanding of human nature.
It goes beyond these simplistic ideas about us just being inherently good.
Right. He's saying we have to accept our capacity for evil
Legit.
in order to be self-aware and actually grow.
And develop character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this brings us to his emphasis on discipline and delayed gratification.
Okay.
And he kind of contrasts it with the allure of instant pleasure. That story he shares about patiently teaching his son to eat.
Oh, yeah.
Is such a beautiful example.
I love that story.
Of how those principles work in everyday life.
It really shows you the dedication and the patience involved in parenting and how discipline and delayed gratification can actually play out in those real-world situations.
Totally. And he ties this idea to the concept of work as a response to the fall.
Okay.
So he's framing sacrifice as a way to build a better future and sort of tame the chaos. Yeah. He even brings in things like Skinner's behavioral research and the story of Sleeping Beauty to show how reward and consequence shape behavior.
It's fascinating how he weaves together these diverse sources, ancient texts, modern science, even fairy tales.
That's really cool.
To build his arguments. Yeah. Like he's creating this tapestry of wisdom.
Now, speaking of weaving together different perspectives, Peterson has strong opinions.
Oh, yeah.
About the dangers of resentment. And he draws on personal experience with his friend Chris.
Right.
But also just reflecting on broader societal trends.
Yeah. And that story about Chris is just...
It's so powerful.
Heartbreaking. It's a really harsh reminder about how destructive those emotions can be if they're left unchecked.
Totally. And he describes Chris as this smart and creative guy, but burdened by this sense of injustice and lack of recognition. And then he even brings in Chris's cousin, Ed, who kind of drifted into a life of drugs and aimlessness.
Right. And then,
And then he talks about his own upbringing.
Yeah.
Which sounds pretty rough and tumble.
Yeah.
He had to learn to stand up for himself. Like that time he faced off against this bully, Renee. It really shows you the importance of asserting yourself, even when you're scared.
Yeah.
And he even talks about working with this tough old farmer.
Right.
Who instilled in him this strong work ethic.
Yeah.
And respect for discipline.
It really paints a picture of a man who has faced a lot of challenges in his life and has learned from them.
Yeah. And he links it all back to meaning making.
Right.
He's saying that it's by facing those challenges, not avoiding them,
not shying away,
that we actually figure out who we are and what we're truly capable of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He even suggests that our willingness to face those challenges head on, to stand up straight with our shoulders back, that's a sign of our commitment to a life of meaning and purpose.
Totally. He's also a big advocate for speaking truthfully and honestly, even when it's tough. He sees truth-telling as a form of courage.
Yes.
And says those honest conversations with ourselves and with others are how we create a more authentic and meaningful life.
Yeah.
He even shares an example from his clinical practice about this client who was struggling with the aftermath of ambiguous sexual encounters.
Right.
And he kind of wrestles with this ethical dilemma of how to help her.
Right.
Recognizing that sometimes
the truth hurts.
The truth is painful and unsettling.
Yeah.
But he ultimately concludes that it's through facing those difficult truths, not hiding from them, that we can find healing and growth.
It's about facing it head on.
Yeah. And then he's also really adamant about taking responsibility for our lives.
Yeah.
Not blaming others for our misfortunes. Right. It's about owning
our choices
and actions, even the ones we regret, so that we can create a more positive and empowering story for ourselves.
It's like taking back the pen and writing your own narrative.
He even suggests that our capacity for self-deception is one of the most dangerous aspects of human nature.
It can be very dangerous.
He tells this really captivating story about his landlord, Dennis.
Oh, yeah, Dennis.
This recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
Former biker gang president.
This guy was intense.
Like, this guy would go on these epic binges, vanishing for days at a time.
Yeah.
And it's like this glimpse into the complexities of human nature.
Totally.
Like how even those who seem so tough and capable can be battling these inner demons.
Yeah. And Peterson uses that story to illustrate that we all have this responsibility to confront our own shadows.
Right.
The parts of ourselves we'd rather
keep hidden. Yeah. And he's saying it's our willingness to face those shadows, to acknowledge our capacity for darkness. That's actually a sign.
It's a sign of
moral courage.
A moral courage.
Yeah. And this idea of confronting darkness within ourselves and in the world, it's like a recurring theme
It is.
throughout his work. He suggests it's through this confrontation that we discover meaning and purpose.
Right.
He even challenges the idea that happiness is the ultimate goal.
Right.
He's proposing meaning as a more profound,
much more profound,
and lasting aim.
Yeah.
Happiness, he argues,
happiness is fleeting.
Is fleeting and dependent on external factors.
Yes.
Whereas meaning is something we can create.
You can create.
Even in the midst of suffering.
Exactly. And he uses this powerful example of Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
The Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
Who found meaning by helping others even while he was imprisoned in a concentration camp.
That's incredible.
It is. It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, we can choose to find meaning and purpose.
So it's not about the circumstances.
It's an internal.
It's our internal choice.
Yeah.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
And it all ties back to the hero's journey.
Right.
Peterson believes that we can all embark on these transformative journeys by facing our fears, overcoming obstacles, and finding redemption through
purposeful action.
Purposeful action.
Yeah.
He uses the story of Pinocchio
to
illustrate this.
I love that story.
This wooden puppet who has to prove himself worthy of becoming a real boy. And his journey is full of temptations and dangers, but he ultimately succeeds.
Through courage and honesty.
Through courage, honesty, and self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
And Peterson suggests that we can all find our own versions of that hero's journey.
Our own hero's journey.
Yeah, by striving for something bigger than ourselves.
Right.
Aligning ourselves with the highest good.
Yes.
And making a positive impact on the world around us.
And he even encourages us to view our lives as stories. Like stories that we're constantly writing through our choices and our actions. He's challenging us to become the heroes of our own narrative, to face our fears, overcome those obstacles, and strive for something greater than ourselves.
Yeah.
It's inspiring.
It is. It is. He talks about his own struggles to find meaning and purpose. And how his work has really helped him make sense of the world and find his place in it.
Yeah.
He even suggests that we can find meaning in suffering. That our struggles develop our character and our resilience and our compassion.
Yeah.
And he talks about the importance of accepting the things we cannot change.
Yeah.
While also taking responsibility for the things we can.
Right.
He urges us to cultivate virtues like honesty and courage.
Yes.
And to strive for excellence.
Yeah.
And to live in accordance with our highest ideals.
And he says by doing that, we can become more than just ordinary human beings.
Right.
We can become something truly extraordinary.
And so as we kind of wrap up this first part of our deep dive,
okay,
what are some of the key takeaways that are...
Peterson's work is challenging, and it's provocative and often very controversial.
Right.
But it's also deeply insightful.
Yeah.
He's offering us a really unique perspective on the human condition.
Yeah.
He challenges us to confront these complexities of life.
Right.
Take responsibility for our choices and strive for something bigger than ourselves.
Totally. He even suggests that this pursuit of meaning is the most important journey.
It's the ultimate
that we can embark on.
Yeah.
And that it's through this pursuit that we find our true purpose and our place in the world.
And he uses all these stories from his own life, from history, from mythology, even from like pop culture to illustrate his points.
Yeah. He's drawing on psychology and philosophy and religion and literature.
Yeah.
And he does it all.
He does.
In a way that's accessible.
In such an engaging way.
And engaging.
Yeah.
So Peterson's work might not resonate with everyone.
Right.
But for those who are willing to engage with it,
it
can be a powerful tool.
It can be
self-discovery and personal growth.
Yeah.
Now, you shared some of your own personal stories that connect with these ideas. So how has his work
That's a great question.
resonated with your own life experiences? What stands out to you?
What's so compelling about Peterson is that he's not afraid to ask the big questions.
Right.
You know, those questions about meaning and purpose and suffering and death. Like those questions that we all wrestle with, but we don't really want to talk about.
Yeah. He's not afraid to go there.
He's not.
Yeah.
And not only that, but he's not afraid to offer answers,
Well,
even when those answers
even when they're not easy.
Are not easy or comfortable.
Right.
He encourages us to think for ourselves.
Yes.
To question those assumptions that we have.
Totally.
And to really forge our own paths.
And he reminds us that that journey of self-discovery
Yeah.
is never really over.
It's a lifelong process,
Yeah,
isn't it?
totally. We've really only scratched the surface
Yeah.
of his work in this deep dive. There's so much more to explore.
Yeah.
What other areas of his work
Well, I'm really interested
kind of pique your interest?
in his ideas about good and evil.
Oh, yeah.
And his critique of postmodernism.
Okay.
And his thoughts on the role of mythology.
Okay.
In shaping human consciousness.
Those are really rich areas for further exploration.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll uncover even more wisdom and insights
Absolutely.
as we continue to delve into Peterson's work.
Yeah.
And what's exciting is that it's not just about gaining knowledge.
No.
It's about applying it.
It's about using that knowledge to become better individuals and create a better world.
Totally. So as you continue exploring these ideas and applying them to your own life, what are some key insights that you're taking away from this deep dive?
Well,
what's resonating with you most?
I think what resonates with me most is his emphasis on personal responsibility and the idea that we have the power to create meaning in our lives, even in the face of suffering.
Yeah.
And I love how he encourages us to view our lives as these heroic narratives that we're constantly writing through our choices and our actions.
I love that too.
It's so empowering.
It is.
Isn't it?
It is. It's like we're not just passive recipients of fate. We're active creators of our own destinies.
We're the authors of our own stories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, we were just talking about, the hero's journey and this idea of finding meaning. And it seems like Peterson is all about taking action and engaging with the world.
Absolutely. He challenges us to be active participants in our own lives, not passive bystanders.
Totally. And a great example of this is his rule, do not bother children.
Oh, yeah.
When they are skateboarding.
I love that one.
Yeah. On the surface, it sounds like a quirky parenting tip.
Yeah.
But there's a much deeper meaning there, right?
There is. He's using skateboarding as this metaphor for the kind of risky play that is crucial for kids' development.
Yeah.
When we allow children to engage in activities that have some level of danger, within reason, of course, we're actually helping them build courage and resilience and a sense of mastery over their environment.
And he even talks about those skate stoppers that they put on those concrete planters.
Yeah.
He's saying that's like a representation of this.
It represents that overprotective impulse that can actually stifle kids' growth.
Yeah.
We're so afraid of them getting hurt that we prevent them from actually experiencing the challenges they need to thrive.
He makes this really interesting connection to the removal of playground equipment in Toronto because of safety concerns.
Yeah.
He's arguing that while safety is important, we've kind of gone overboard in trying to eliminate all risk from kids' lives. And he even points out that he saw children playing on the roof of their school during that time.
Wow.
Which is a far more dangerous activity than playing on a well-designed playground. So it's like we've created this culture of fear that's making kids more vulnerable.
Exactly.
Not less.
Yeah.
By shielding them from these challenges, we're actually robbing them of the opportunity to develop the skills and resilience they need to deal with life.
Yeah. And that overprotective impulse isn't limited to kids.
Right.
Peterson suggests that we often see similar dynamics in adult relationships and even in society as a whole.
Right. Like he talks about how resentment can build up when people feel like they're constantly giving without receiving anything in return.
Right.
And he brings in the story of Chris again.
Right.
Who is struggling with those feelings of...
Yeah. He struggled with feeling inadequate.
Inadequacy and resentment.
And not getting what he deserved.
And it ultimately led to a very tragic end.
Right. And Peterson describes him as this smart and creative guy.
Yeah.
But he was burdened by this sense of injustice.
Right. Like he wasn't...
Like he felt like he wasn't being recognized.
Being recognized for his contribution.
For his talents.
Yeah. And then he mentions Chris's cousin.
Right. Ed. Who just drifted into a life of drugs and just no aim. And then Peterson even reflects on his own upbringing.
Yeah.
Which sounds pretty rough and tumble.
Right. Like he had to learn to stand up for himself.
Like that time he faced off against that bully, Renee.
I remember that story.
Yeah.
And it really highlights the importance of
asserting yourself.
Asserting yourself.
Even when you're
terrified.
Terrified, yeah.
And then he also talks about working with this tough old farmer.
Yeah. That farmer really
instilled in him a strong work ethic.
Really strong work ethic.
And respect for discipline.
Yeah. All these stories, they really paint a picture of a man who's faced a lot of adversity.
Right.
And learned from it. And he sees these challenges, both personal and societal, as opportunities for growth and transformation.
Yeah. And he links it all back to meaning making.
Yeah.
He's saying it's by facing those challenges, not avoiding them, that we actually figure out who we are.
And what
we're capable of.
Yeah. And he suggests that our willingness to face those challenges head on, to stand up straight with our shoulders back, that's a sign of our commitment to a life of meaning and purpose.
Okay. I love that visual. Stand up straight, shoulders back. It's like
you're ready to take on the world.
Totally. And he's also really big on speaking truthfully.
Oh.
And honestly, even when it's tough, he says truth-telling is a form...
It takes courage.
...of courage.
Yeah.
And those honest conversations that we have with ourselves and with others are how we create a more...
It's how we create a more authentic...
Authentic and meaningful life.
Meaningful life, yeah.
Yeah. He even shares that example from his clinical practice.
Yeah.
About a client who was struggling with the aftermath of ambiguous sexual encounters.
Yeah.
And he was wrestling with this ethical dilemma of how to help her.
Yeah.
Recognizing that sometimes
the truth
is painful.
Yeah.
And unsettling.
But
he concludes that it's through...
He says it's through facing those difficult truths, not hiding from them. That we can find healing.
Yeah, we can find.
Healing and growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's also very adamant about...
He is.
Taking responsibility for our lives.
Yeah.
Not blaming others for our misfortunes.
Yeah.
It's about owning...
our choices.
And our actions.
Their actions.
Even the ones we regret.
We regret, yeah.
That we can...
Because if we can actually start...
Creating a more positive and empowering story.
Creating a more positive and empowering story for ourselves.
He even suggests that our capacity for self-deception is one of the...
It's one of the most...
dangerous aspects of human nature. And he tells this really captivating story about...
Yeah, I love that story about...
His landlord.
Dennis.
The former biker gang president.
This recovering alcoholic, former biker gang president.
Yeah.
And this guy would go on these epic binges.
And
vanish for days at a time.
Yeah.
And it's this glimpse.
It's like a whim.
Into the complexities of human nature.
Into the human psyche.
Right. Like how even those who seem so tough and capable.
They're the toughest among us.
Can
struggle. Battling these inner demons.
With their own demons.
And he uses Dennis's story.
He does. He uses it to
illustrate
that we all
have a responsibility to confront our
shadows.
The
parts of ourselves. That we'd rather not.
That we keep hidden.
Acknowledge.
Yeah. Right. And he's saying that our capacity for darkness.
Our willingness.
What's actually a sign.
Yeah, that's a sign.
Of moral courage.
True courage. Of moral courage.
Yeah. And this idea of confronting...
It's a powerful idea.
Darkness.
Yeah.
Within ourselves and in the world.
Right.
It's a recurring theme.
Yeah. It's a
Throughout his work, he suggests that...
Pops up again and again.
It's through this confrontation that we discover.
It's through the confrontation...
With meaning and purpose. And he even challenges this idea.
He does.
That happiness is... the ultimate.
He says happiness is not the be-all and end-all.
Right. He's proposing meaning. As this more profound.
There's a more profound
and lasting aim.
Yeah.
He says happiness is fleeting.
It's fleeting. It comes and goes.
And dependent on external factors.
Yeah. Dependent on circumstances. Whereas
meaning is something we can create
from within.
Even in the midst of suffering.
Exactly. Even in the midst of suffering. And he uses that incredible...
powerful example.
Of Viktor Frankl. The Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
This man found meaning.
Yeah. He found meaning...
by helping others.
While imprisoned.
When he was in a concentration camp.
Imprisoned in a concentration camp.
Oh, wow. So it really is.
It's powerful stuff.
Not about the
It's about an internal choice.
circumstances. It's about our internal choice.
Yeah.
So powerful. And it all ties back to the hero's journey.
It does. Peterson believes
We can all embark.
that we can all in these
the
transformative journeys by facing our fears,
Embark on the
overcoming those obstacles,
transformative journeys.
on finding redemption.
Through facing our fears.
For overcoming obstacles
Yeah.
and finding redemption through purposeful action.
Yeah, he uses the story
Pinocchio
to illustrate this. The wooden puppet
I love that story.
who has to prove himself worthy of becoming a real boy.
Right. And his journey
And his journey
is so full of temptations
and dangers.
and dangers.
But he ultimately succeeds
But he
through courage and honesty and self-sacrifice.
ultimately succeeds.
And Peterson suggests
Please suggest
that we can all find
that we can all find
our own versions of
our own versions of the hero's journey
the hero's journey
by striving for something bigger than ourselves,
by striving,
aligning ourselves
Oh.
with the highest good,
Yeah.
bigger than ourselves,
and making a positive impact
aligning ourselves on the world around us.
with the highest good and
Yeah.
making a positive impact on the world.
And he even encourages us to
He does.
view our lives as stories, stories that we're constantly writing through our choices and our actions. And he's challenging us to become
the hero
of our own narratives, to face our fears, to overcome those obstacles,
Yeah.
and to strive for something greater than ourselves.
He talks about his own struggles to find meaning and purpose.
He's very open about his own struggles with these things.
Right.
And how his work has helped him make sense of the world. And find his place in it. Yeah. He suggests we can find meaning in suffering. That it's through our struggle.
That it's through the
we develop character.
Through resilience.
Yeah. We develop character.
And compassion.
Resilience and compassion.
Yeah.
Right. He talks about the importance of accepting.
Right. It's
the things we can't change.
The things we can.
While also taking responsibility for the things we can.
And he urges us to cultivate.
He urges us to cultivate those virtues like
honesty and courage. To strive for excellence and to live with our highest ideals.
In accordance with our highest ideals.
And he says by doing that,
we can become more than just ordinary human beings. We can become something.
We can become something truly extraordinary. Yeah.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
We have.
As we wrap up our exploration of Jordan Peterson's work,
Yeah.
I keep thinking about how he connects these
Right.
seemingly unrelated things. Like he brings together psychology and biology and philosophy and mythology, even religion. It's really impressive.
It is. It's like he's weaving this intricate tapestry of knowledge and showing us how all these different threads actually create a richer understanding of what it means to be human.
Totally. And he doesn't shy away from the tough questions either.
No, he doesn't. Those uncomfortable topics that force us to look at ourselves in the mirror.
Yeah. And we touched on one of those areas earlier.
Yeah.
His critique of certain aspects of the modern feminist movement.
Right. Now, it's important to remember that we're here to explore Peterson's ideas.
Exploring ideas, not endorsing any particular political stance.
Yeah.
But it's worth understanding where his critique is coming from.
Right.
He acknowledges the important victories that feminism has achieved.
Of course.
But he argues that it's sometimes gone too far.
Right. Promoting a sense of victimhood and resentment that can be harmful to both men and women.
Yeah. I think what makes Peterson so fascinating is that he's willing
to
tackle these
he's willing to go there
controversial topics head on.
He doesn't hold back.
Right. Even if it means facing backlash.
Exactly.
He challenges those prevailing narratives.
Right.
And he encourages critical thinking.
He wants us to think for ourselves.
Thoughtful debate. Instead of shutting down the conversation.
Open and honest.
Totally. It's that willingness to engage with those difficult ideas that draws people to his work.
Draws people to him.
Yeah. Another potentially controversial area is his perspective on hierarchies.
Yeah.
He argues that hierarchies aren't inherently bad.
Right.
In fact, he
suggests that
it can be necessary.
They can be necessary.
And even beneficial.
And he points
to examples in the animal kingdom.
Right. Even lobsters.
Like lobsters.
Have dominance hierarchies.
To show that hierarchy.
It's a natural part of life.
Like this natural and essential part of life.
And he suggests that they can bring stability and order. They can provide a framework for cooperation and achievement.
He's not naive about it, though.
No.
He recognizes that hierarchies can be abused.
Of course.
And lead to oppression and injustice.
Corruption and injustice.
Yeah.
And his point is...
But he's saying...
We need to find that...
We need to find that balance...
Absolute balance.
Between the need for structure...
Between structure and...
Individual freedom.
Individual freedom.
Yeah. And this is where his emphasis on personal responsibility comes in.
Yes.
Even within a hierarchy.
Yeah.
We have choices.
We do.
About how we behave.
How we treat others.
How we treat others.
What values we uphold.
What values we uphold.
Yeah.
He's challenging us to strive for...
Let's strive for excellence. In all areas of our life.
In all areas of our life.
To cultivate virtue.
To cultivate virtue.
And to contribute to a better society.
To a better world.
Yeah. He even suggests that we can find meaning.
We can have purpose.
By taking on that responsibility of improving the world around us. Actually,
with our own family.
Our communities and workplaces.
Yeah. It starts with us.
And he tells this really inspiring story.
Oh, yeah.
About a young man who found meaning.
Yeah.
In a very simple job.
A humble job.
As a dishwasher.
As a dishwasher.
Yeah.
And this guy struggled with social anxiety and isolation. Mm-hmm. And he found that by focusing on doing his work well, he was able to build confidence.
He built confidence.
He developed skills.
And create a more positive
and
story self. Yeah. It's a perfect example of his belief in the transformative power
of meaningful work.
Meaningful work.
Yeah.
And it's not about the money.
It's not about the money.
Or the status.
Or the status.
It's about contributing to something larger than yourself.
Right. It's about making a difference.
Making a difference, even in small ways.
Even in those small ways.
And it all comes back to meaning making. Peterson argues that finding meaning is the antidote.
It's the antidote to the chaos.
To the chaos and emptiness.
And the emptiness of life.
Of life.
Yeah. And it's what...
He gives us direction and purpose. And that sense of purpose.
Right. And he urges us to find our own sources of meaning.
Yeah.
Whether it's through religion or philosophy.
Yeah. Whatever resonates with you.
Or art. Or relationships, or our work.
Or your relationships.
Yeah. And he makes this crucial point. He says, meaning isn't just handed to us.
No.
We create it.
We create it.
Through our choices.
Actions. And our actions.
And our relationships.
And our contributions to the world.
It's empowering.
So empowering.
It is.
It brings us back to this idea of writing our own heroic narrative.
Our own heroic narratives.
Yeah. Peterson encourages us to see our lives.
To see our lives as stories.
As stories that we're constantly...
And we're shaping. Yeah.
Through our choices and actions.
And he challenges us.
He's challenging us.
Become the heroes. To become the heroes of our own story.
Of our own stories.
Yeah.
Right. To face our fear.
To face our fears, to overcome those obstacles.
When we overcome obstacles and reach for something.
And to reach for something more.
Sure.
Yeah. He's very open about his own struggles with these things.
About his own...
Finding meaning.
Struggles with finding meaning and purpose. Right. And how his work has helped him make sense of the world.
Right.
And find his place in it.
Yeah.
He even suggests that we can find meaning.
It is.
In suffering.
Yeah.
Right. That our struggles can actually shape our character.
They can. They can make...
And build resilience.
More resilient.
And teach us compassion.
Yeah.
He talks about the importance of accepting what we can't change.
Right.
While also taking responsibility for what we can.
Responsibility for the things that we can.
And he urges us.
To
cultivate virtues like honesty.
And
courage.
And to strive for excellence.
And
to live by our highest ideals.
And he even says that by living.
This
way we can become ordinary people than just ordinary people.
Right. We can become something truly extraordinary. As we wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah.
I'm feeling both challenged and inspired.
It's challenging work, but it's... Also incredibly rewarding.
And demanding, but it's also incredibly rewarding. He pushes us to think critically.
He does.
To question our assumptions.
Yeah.
And to strive for a life of meaning and purpose.
Go for it, to strive for that life of meaning and purpose.
He reminds us that self-discovery is an ongoing
journey.
It never ends.
It never ends. There's always more to learn. There's always more to experience.
There's always more to learn. There's always more to experience. Yeah. And he encourages us to be open.
To be open to new ideas.
To new ideas.
To challenge ourselves.
To challenge ourselves.
And to keep growing.
Yeah. And that's a powerful message for all of us.
It is.
So as you continue to explore these ideas and apply them to your own life, what are some key insights that you're taking away?
Well,
what's resonating with you most?
I think what resonates with me most is that reminder that
what will you do differently?
Discovery.
Because of what you've learned.
It never ends.
It's a journey.
Yeah. Keep exploring, keep questioning.
Keep exploring, keep questioning.
Keep growing.
And keep striving for that life.
And keep striving.
Filled with meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
And who knows?
For that life of meaning and purpose.
You might even write your own heroic narrative.
It might even
along the way. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Heroic narrative.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing.
Absolutely.
And keep seeking truth.